All right, welcome. In this video, we're going to continue our tour of the apply function family and take a look at the tapply function. So the tapply function is a little bit different than the other apply functions, the lapply, sapply, vapply functions that we looked at. The tapply function is going to apply a function to all values associated with a certain level of a factor variable. So now we're comparing two variables together. And so this is really, really useful for comparing statistics for a single quantitative variable across multiple classes of a factor variable. So we'll take a look at some examples using the Chick-Waits data frame that we've been working with. But the inputs into a tapply function would be, first we need some data. So we need a numeric variable typically, but it can be any sort of data. But we'll call that X. And again, X is typically like a numeric vector or a numeric variable from a data frame. Then we're going to choose an index. And so the index is going to be a factor variable, and it needs to be the same length as vector X. So you can think of this as two columns in a data frame. The first column has some quantitative variable, and the second column is telling us which class that value fits into. And then we need to pick a function that we're going to apply. So again, that might be a mean or a median or a quantile. And we might need to specify additional arguments that we want to pass into that function, depending on what the function is. There's a default argument. I'm going to ignore that one, but you can check out the tapply function documentation for more info on that. I don't think I've ever used that option. And then there is a simplify argument, which works similar to the previous apply functions. The default is true. So the default is it's going to want to coerce the results into some sort of an array, like a vector or a matrix. If false is returned, then it's going to return a list for us. So we have some control over whether or not we want that output to be in an array versus a list. So let's apply this tapply function to Chick-Waits. And in this chicken data set, we only have two variables. So we have their weight and we have their feed. And so if we take a look at the data, I'm just going to do head Chick-Waits. Sorry, let me spell that correctly. Chick-Waits. You can see how the data is laid out. So we've got weight is kind of our X variable, and feed is our index variable. So I'm going to set X equal to Chick-Waits weight. I'm going to set the index equal to the feed variable from the Chick-Waits data frame. And for example, let's say I want to apply the mean function. Then what this is going to do is it's going to do a couple of things. So it's going to take and group all of the feed like horse beans together and then average those. And then it's going to group together, I think sunflower was another feed type, and it's going to, for all of the observations that had a feed of sunflower, let's average together all of those weights. And it's going to do this for every factor variable of feed. And then we'll see how the output is displayed. So this created, it looks like a list here, and we've named each of the elements in the list. So here, the first element in our list corresponds to casein, and that is the mean weight for all of the chickens that were in that were fed casein. For all of the chickens that were fed horse bean, this is their average weight. For all of the chickens that got linseed, this was their average weight, and so on. So that's super nice. It kind of did a subsetting and the mean function all at once for us and display the output in a nice way. If I put simplify equals false, we get a very similar looking display here, but at least I'm looking at this in Colab. It prints them down vertically instead of across the screen horizontally. So here it might be more clear which value corresponds to which class. Over here, you might misread this. So just be careful that first it lists the name of the class and then the summary statistic afterwards. Yeah, so here we can see what the different average weights were for the chickens in each of the different casein groups. And we could apply other functions. So with the chick weights data frame, I only have two variables to play around with, but I could choose different types of functions. So for example, the summary function would give us a 5-number summary as well as the mean value for each of the feed types. So here we get a little bit more complete data, and I can also enter functions that require other values to be passed into it. So we'll take a look at practicing using the tapply function in the next question in the next video.